Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. My name is Sarah, and today my co-host Carrie Bennett and I are going to be making these complex topics of quantum biology and circadian biology understandable to the everyday person. Thank you so much for tuning in. We ask that if you are listening on audio only, that you take a moment to leave us up to a 5-star review. And if you're on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment. It will help to get the show out to more people. And before we jump into today's topic, just a quick reminder to head down to the show notes and check out my free resources as well as Carrie's free resources. We also do have courses on a variety of topics. If you are hoping to dive deeper, Carrie and I both have practitioner courses available as well for anyone who wants to begin to bring these topics to their clients and help them to implement these strategies into their daily lives. So check those out. We also have a co-taught course called Quantum Fertility that is available that allows people and practitioners to work on their fertility using these principles of quantum biology and circadian biology. Again, thank you so much for listening or watching today's show, whichever one you are doing. And let's go ahead and jump into it now.
But I think when we talk about longevity, I have to say that I think the thing that most people are the most concerned with has to do with cognition, because we've all had or are likely to have a family member, a loved one, someone that all of a sudden they reach this point in time and the cognition, you can start to see it start to go. And so if there's what's the backstory, what's going on in the body, likely oxidative stress in the brain in some capacity, and what are the studies showing with grounding?
Well, brain is just an organ system like anything else. And so it's very, very related to inflammation. So when we're talking about the brain, we're talking about neuroinflammation, and inflammation over time makes fibrotic change, and your brain starts it doesn't really shrink, but it like dehydrates and the fibrotic tissue builds up. And so it's no longer active neurons. It's just scar tissue basically. And that is a direct correlation with inflammation over a lifetime. So that's why inflammation is linked with dementia, poor sleep, ALS, Huntington's disease, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, you name it, is related to inflammation in the body. So what we want to do is slow down inflammation so we can protect that neuroinflammation, and we can protect our brain. And so there's the shorter term grounding studies that show, well, not only does sleeping well protect the brain, which we already talked about, but studies on grounding have shown that it decreases the exact inflammatory cytokines that cause neuroinflammation. And that the study on that, looking at the exact inflammatory cytokines that impact neurotransmitter levels like dopamine, it decreases by about 20%. That might not sound like a lot, but if you are grounding on and off, mostly on, hopefully, throughout a lifetime, and you're decreasing neuroinflammation by 20% in your brain and those inflammatory cytokines, that's a big deal. Like, that is a really big deal. That might give you years of brain function. That we don't know. We need decade-long studies on that. But that also does help explain why grounding has been shown in short-term studies after just minutes to boost mood, because it is affecting the inflammation in your brain, and your dopamine is getting a hit because that inflammation is being relieved, and it's amazing. And so that has been shown just from grounding alone. And then most recently, and this didn't make it in, and I just wanted to mention almost all of the topics we're talking about today, I published this summer in Trends in General Medicine in July, and it's called Is Grounding an Anti-Aging Breakthrough? And I go through all these different things. So I can give you guys a PDF if you want to.
Amazing.
Yes. So if you want to share that with your readers, so that way they have all this. And if they want to look at a specific study, it's in the references section and they can look it up and read it. But anyway, so this one is the one that is most recent and didn't even make it into that. And this is a study looking at people who grounded barefoot in the morning. And this was an outdoor study. So this is not, unfortunately, being able to take into account placebo effect. But it was 4 weeks. And every morning they walked barefoot outside, one group. One group walked barefoot outside in the exact same place for the exact same amount of time, but wore sneakers. And then one group, for the exact amount of time, did cognitive tests like schoolwork or homework or classwork or work, so that they were keeping their brain stimulated. So either they were focusing on intellectual work, they were walking outside with sneakers, or they were walking outside in the same place and time Barefoot. Okay. And so they did EEGs to look at brain stress and brainwave patterns. And they did it at the beginning of the 4 weeks. And then they did cognitive tests like memory and speed and cognition, other tests like that. And then they did it at the end of the 4 weeks. Okay. Very interesting. And I wish this was in time for me to talk about it in the anti-aging study, because this tells you a lot. The people who walked the same place but with shoes on had not that much different change in their brain stress, which so that does show being outside in and of itself will help take away brain stress, right? But when they did the neurocognitive tests, their speed did not improve, their memory did not improve. None of the actual neurocognitive tests improves. So they felt better, and they definitely had, I'm sure, health benefit just from being outside every morning, 100%, no doubt. Their sleep probably improved. Other things they didn't look at, I'm sure. However, their actual brain function did not improve from walking outside with sneakers. The group that you would think the brain function, like they do awesome on their cognitive tests, their, memorization and whatever, you would think would be the ones that were inside studying and working their brain as a muscle, but it wasn't. They had the worst markers of brain stress, the worst. So the sneaker versus non-sneaker, the EEG didn't change that much, but the cognitive tests changed. The ones that were actually studying and working hard, and this is what I tell my son who's a senior in college, and he's just like nervous about his finals. And I'm like, literally go outside, because these people who were studying and working their brains for an hour every morning while these other people were outside walking had the worst markers of brain stress and did the very worst on their cognitive tests. So if you
were they on screens? Were they on screens? Yeah, they were on screens.
I didn't run that study, so I don't know. I think
they
it
were
was
looking at books.
Right, we'll pretend, but I do think it was like a free time for them to like do whatever work that they wanted to bring into that time. But yeah, they had the worst. Yeah, their brain was frazzled. They did the worst in concentration. They did the worst. So like prepping for an exam or a test or a meeting or an interview or a trip or whatever, it's honestly better to just pause the whole brain and just go outside and take a deep breath. And if you can do it barefoot, you'll actually enhance cognition. If you do it with sneakers on, you'll just at least remain neutral. And if you do it inside trying to like, you're going to make it way worse.
Yeah.
It's so funny. The number of times my husband and I are on a walk, right? And I don't typically have my cell phone, on if it's anything that's a podcast or it's on airplane mode.
Right.
But the number of times when I'm walking outside grounded, and then all of a sudden it's like I get this intellectual download where I'm like, where we're walking together, I'm like, sorry, buddy. Sorry, my love. I have to just really quickly like I gotta jot all these notes down. It happens all the time when I'm outdoors and grounded, right? It's just all of a sudden I feel like I become this antenna.
Well, Carrie, you are, because, but in a good way to the natural EMFs, because you're exactly right. So they did studies. This is not looking at grounding versus non-grounding. So I didn't mention it yet, but it's worth mentioning. You are so right. When you're outside in that natural EMF field, in that Schumann frequency, they have actually done studies exposing the brain to the Schumann frequency while they're hooked up to an EEG and they're looking at brain signals. And the Schumann frequency is cohesive with our cerebral cortex, and it's cohesive in the area of the parahippocampal gyrus, which is where we find meaning and context. And it's cohesive throughout our brain, but the highest level of cohesion with changes in the Schumann frequency and changes in our brainwave patterns is right there where our brain forms meaning and makes sense and orientation. So I think it's they've already shown in animals that it's like part of the navigational system and probably hooks into that Carnegie curve we were talking about. But for humans, if you had a stroke in that area, that parahippocampal gyrus, you lose context and meaning, which is why it's an early indicator for Alzheimer's too, if that area shrinks. But like, I don't know if we talked about this in an interview in the past, but if you have a stroke right there, you might see that there's a bunch of people lined up, but you don't know which one's your child. Like you lose that, or you're in the parking lot and there's cars parked everywhere, and you would understand those are vehicles, but if you had a stroke there, you would not recognize which one was your car. So it's like really important. It provides context of your life, what's meaningful to you. So 100% when you're outside walking, 100% you're like, oh crap, that's that, 100%. And medical studies have shown that. Yeah, no, I just got goosebumps because it's like for real. And I just think it's awesome that you were able to like pick up on that and notice that instead of just, because some people would be like, man,
I know.
But it's medical studies showing that.
I say, I'm getting a download. Hang on.
Yeah, 100%.
Got to write some notes here.
100%.
Oh, that's so cool. So let's go. So then with the cognition stuff, any particular, you alluded to Alzheimer's disease. There was that one in the Alzheimer's unit, just sleeping better, which is phenomenal, because I know sundowners is such a thing in the Alzheimer's community, right? To be able to regulate the day-night cycles.
Yes.
Anything else in terms of neurocognition as we age that we can, maybe extrapolate from the studies on grounding?
Yeah, no, there's
Okay.
the neuroinflammation, the dopamine and different neurotransmitter levels, and just accrued inflammation. And then also like indirectly because it's boosting sleep quality. And if you have poor sleep, even just poor sleep alone, you up your risk of dementia. So you're going to get better sleep, slow down that neuroinflammation, and hopefully boost cognition. But that's as far as we've got so far.
That's phenomenal. I mean, it's cool. But I do want to go on to skin health at some point, because Sarah and I, people like to ask us about our
I get so many skin questions. I'm like, when did I become a dermatologist?
But you have beautiful skin.
Yeah. See me up. Yeah, no. But before that, I'm a mitochondria nerd. Any indication on how earthing and grounding directly influences the mitochondria?
There is not studies on that yet. And unfortunately, I am not a mitochondria nerd, so I don't feel educated enough to present on that. I'm sure you know a lot more than I do about that, because I'm just looking at organ systems as a whole. And I have to admit, that's not something I would feel very educated talking about. So Can you think of any? Because
I mean, my God, I almost feel like earthing acts as an adaptogen, right? Because we see the studies on antioxidants, like these nutraceutical antioxidant supplements, where we don't want to do super high doses for long periods of time, because reactive oxygen species, those are signals, those are biophotonic communication signals. And so I'm thinking earthing, it's like, yes, these free electrons essentially can calm oxidative stress, but just to that right amount, right? Where it's not going to suppress the signal that, hey, healing, we still need to do some healing. The mitochondria still need some support here. And so I just kind of view earthing as another one of the nature's beautiful adaptogens. It's like you said, you can't do too much. You won't get the effect of suppressing the signal. You'll just get the healing benefit.
100%. I love that. Was very, very well said, and such a good thing to point out. So on a mitochondrial level, that makes total sense. But I can also reflect on a clinical level that is actually what I see. So with grounding, there is like an intuitive part of it, because it does seem like your body knows what needs to be balanced first. So when people come, so I did, like, for example, a weight loss study where I enrolled people who were desiring to lose weight. And so all they did was ground to the earth outside for 15 minutes a day. That is the only thing we changed about there. No more diet changes, no exercise, nothing, just grounding to the earth. And I think it was about 12 weeks long. And ones who did not, what I know, so when I got the results back, it was like 60% of them lost about a pound a week, and then 40% didn't. So I was like, well, I mean, that in of itself is huge. If you had a medication,
was there like a time of day that they had to go? I'm like right.
15 minutes a day. 15 minutes a day. That's a pound a week. Most people lost a pound a week. Some people lost 15 pounds. Some people lost 10 pounds. But it was a 12-week study, and most people lost about a pound a week. But then I started, but I was a little frustrated, like, why isn't everybody? But the 40% that didn't had something else totally resolved first. And I think it's like just what you said, Carrie. I think the body is like triaging that for us and knows the right amount and the right level. Because one of the people was enrolled, and this was not something I did on the intake form. It was something after I sat down and talked with them afterwards, because she didn't lose weight, but she canceled a surgery because she was going to have carpal tunnel surgery in both of her wrists. She had so much pain and inflammation. And by the end of just those 12 weeks, she didn't have it anymore. So, it'd be interesting if once those issues resolved, if then weight would start. But for her, the most acute issue was inflammation in the wrist, preventing her from doing her job. And then subsequently, not in that particular study, because that was specifically looking at weight, but subsequently I've used and seen grounding with underweight patients. And because there's this concern then, well, if I'm underweight and I'm struggling to keep weight, if I have cancer or whatever, is grounding going to make me lose even more weight? Or grounding has been shown to decrease blood pressure in people who have high blood pressure. Right. So then the worry is it going to decrease blood pressure? And no, it does the opposite. It's just like you said, Carrie. Exactly. It helps normalize, is what I always say. So it's normalizing your weight, even if you have to go up, or it's normalizing your blood pressure, even if it has to rise. So it is an adaptogen. I have never called it that, and you should trademark that, but that's fabulous. Yeah. That's what it is.
I already call sunlight an adaptogen for cortisol. So now we can add grounding, and now I'm about to go change my weight loss program to make the requirement for 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes a day.
Here's the study.
Yeah.
Don't ask questions. Yeah. Just do it.
Just do it.
No excuses.
And if you aren't losing weight from that, then examine what else. There's something else that the earth is helping you with first.
Exactly. Because people will always come to me. I've been doing the sunlight. I've been doing the stuff you recommend. I'm not losing weight.
But what else is happening? Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're like, but I'm no longer getting facial hair. My nails started growing.
My migraines went away, whatever.
Right. My migraine stopped. My Hashimoto's antires dropped by 500 points.
All of a sudden I can digest my food. Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, what do you your body has a triage system.
Yeah,
Weight loss is not at the top of the list.
I would say it's at the very lowest part of the list, because in times of stress, that is why you're retaining weight. Is smart of your body, because it's saying if there is an emergency, this person can get through 2 months. And I will make sure. And that's why your body is powering down.
Exactly.
So 100%. I don't even, exactly. That's a good point that you made.
You just alluded to gut stuff, right? Gut function.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that's another one that as we age, right, we're quote unquote more prone to IBS, IBD, those sorts of things. So what about earthing and gut health?
So there are not a lot of studies about it directly, but indirectly we can say it obviously decreases overall body inflammation. So the gut lining would be no different. And the other thing we 100% can say is that grounding instantly boosts vagal tone. That's that vagus nerve that has a hand in almost all of your autonomic functions. So like your heartbeat, your breathing, your blood pressure, your digestion, things you don't have to think about. And so that vagal tone, that vagus nerve affects everything in your digestion, from making saliva and swallowing to gut peristalsis, to elimination, to digestion, and everything in between, just even pancreatic enzymes being in all of it, the vagal tone changes. So that is one of the reasons in that study we talked about with the infants that being grounded helped their survival markers, because they're looking at vagal tone, because these are babies who can't digest food yet because their whole digestive system is immature. And by instantly doing things like boosting heart rate, boosting metabolism, helping with oxygenation, but also the digestive tract. So unfortunately, I can't point to any double-blind placebo-based studies on it yet, but I can say anecdotally in my practice, digestion it's huge to be grounded, even just like we just talked about, for 15 minutes a day. But what I like to tell people, if they could possibly, if they don't want to remember that, or like it just seems like something on the to-do list, instead of all that, multitask, take one thing and eat it or drink it outside every day. So like literally for me, I might just take my cup of coffee and just ground outside with my hand on the cement rail that's outside my office building. Like it doesn't have to be a big deal, but if I just drink one bottle of water, well, I don't like bottles, but you know what I mean, a glass of water, if I have my coffee, if I have my breakfast before I even come to work, or at the evening, or if all week long I have not digested anything while I was grounded, maybe I'll do a campfire or a potluck or something on the weekend, a picnic, especially if the weather's nice. One way to multitask with grounding is just taking your next glass of water outside and doing that grounded. If you just did that once a day, you would know that while you're activating your digestive tract, your grounding is also stabilizing and boosting that vagal tone and getting you out of, because the thing is, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir, I know you guys know this, but your listeners, if you're in fight or flight, like we talked about with the stress and the cortisol and the hair trigger, and you can't sleep, you cannot rest and digest. They're mutually exclusive. So when you are when your vagal tone is switching your dial from stress, fight and flight, to the rest and digest. So it's not just getting you out of fight and flight, it's actually moving you to something healthy, which is your muscle tone decreases, you're resting, and all of a sudden your food can digest. But the minute you disconnect or your stress levels go back, of course, digesting food is the last thing your body wants to think about. It's more worried that you're going to have a booming heart rate, or your blood pressure is going to, or your muscles are going to be ready to run. You know, it's keeping you in that cortisol mode. So yeah, digestion is a huge part of that. But to your point, it would be phenomenal if we actually had grounding studies looking directly at, nutrient absorption and nitty gritty details like that.
In terms of you're talking about going outside, which I love, right? Please, people, go outside with a glass of water or your meals. Same thing though, if people were to eat, let's say, with underneath their dining room table, if they had a grounding mat, right? Same thing.
100%. Because again, the infants who got the metabolic and digestive improvements were on a grounding mat in an incubator. So yes, putting your feet, right at the bottom of your table, or using it as a mat in front of your kitchen sink. Or, although that does remind me, one of the nice things about prepping food and then washing up afterwards is we want
to talk a little bit about why we both use more red light therapy in the winter really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Come summer, it is so easy for me to pop outside for 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, take the clothes off and just soak up the natural light, right? And I know you do. I know you do the same. And it's beautiful because we're getting all of those red and near infrared wavelengths from the sun and imparting all those healing benefits from sunlight. But come, November, December in Michigan, there's very little opportunity for me to do that. It's just too cold, and so I'll go outside and get my light signaling through my eyes, but my skin really, that infrared and red that I want to absorb through my skin is just lacking. And so that's why I would highly recommend, if you live in an environment like that, you consider using a red light therapy panel in the winter. It can be the biggest game changer.
Yeah. And we both love the Bon Charge Mini. This is super convenient. You can take it with you traveling. You guys don't know, when I'm recording the podcast, half the time I have it on my low back or somewhere in my body to mitigate some of this blue light. And for the months of November and December, you can use the code QuantumPod25 for November and December only to get 25% off the panel or anything on the Bon Charge website. Carrie and I are both big fans.
Yeah. And one more thing really quickly with that. It's a great gift too, right? If you want to start getting people involved in this lifestyle and say it's the most convenient way, if there's a mom that who needs to tend to boo-boos and aches and pains for kids, or earaches, tummy aches, sore throats, it's a phenomenal gift to give as well, because it really can wipe away pain very fast.
I love it. All right, check it out. Link is in the show notes.
When you're washing dishes afterwards, even if you didn't ground during your meal, if you're the one who gets to do the dishes after your meal, that's actually to your benefit. Notice that you digest your food better on nights when you do the dishes right after you eat, because you got food in your stomach. And now I'm running water on my hands, which that is grounding me even without a grounding tool. But then if I went and slept and digested my food all night long on a grounding mat on my bed, that's awesome. That's
Can
fire.
you just briefly talk about the grounded indoors in the tub, running water? Because I've tested all around my house, shown it on my stories. And then I always get the people that are like, not all indoor plumbing is grounded. What about people that have plastic pipes? And then my boyfriend is a plumber, and he says you're full of nonsense. No. And I'm like,
sorry, dude. No, she's not full of nonsense. 1,000%. Yeah, sorry. It's not the plumb. Yeah, because they're just being limited thinking, and they're thinking like the plastic pipe, and it's not dependent on the pipe. It is the stream of water. In our country,
conductive.
It's conductive, and we have. Well, this is how pathetic our government sort of is in this particular realm, because we have to have our water tanks and our water heaters, even a tankless water heater, they have to be grounded by law as to reduce fire risk, right? So it's to protect the appliances, basically. But indirectly, great, because guess what? When that water is grounded as it's running through it doesn't matter if the pipe is plastic, the stream of water is grounded as it's coming out of so I've even tested in, if I drink from the water fountain here, even just while I'm drinking from the water fountain, I'm grounded, or washing my hands. But, taking a bath, you can, and that's why it's counterintuitive, because I actually have a little hot tub in my garage, and it's plastic, right? And it's gross. It's all plastic, and you're thinking, no way is that grounded. But no, that water is grounded. I've tested it. It's on my TikTok channel. But also, if you're at a hotel and you're traveling, the pool, you might not want to be in that chlorinated pool, but if you did, all bodies of water indoors that run off a filtration system or a tank or some kind of power, it has to be grounded. So every source of water you will find inside will ground you.
Yeah, my cold plunge is grounded.
Yes.
I've tested everything in my house, because I've got the intuition physician meter, because everyone's always like, is that grounded? Is that grounded? And so I'm like, no, I'm going to videotape everything. I'm going to tape everything. Washing and dishes. I
hate it when someone who doesn't know what they're saying leaves an offhanded comment trying to invalidate it. My boyfriend's a plumber. I get that all the constantly. All the
time. That's the one I get. It's the boyfriend plumber.
Yes, or the electrician who, whatever. And it's frustrating, because you just put doubt in the minds of all these people that was going to help. So yes, I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to clarify. It's 1,000% the stream of water. How gross is this? Tell that boyfriend who's a plumber, if he put his finger in a toilet bowl and touched the water in a toilet bowl, it's grounded. So do that.
I'm not going to test that one.
That's for the dogs. The dogs, right? The dogs want to drink out of the toilet, not their other bowl, right?
Right.
That's what
it's grounded. They're grounded. That's exactly right. So it's ridiculous to say the water's not grounded, is my point, because all water, even in your toilet, is grounded.
All right. Yeah. Well, there it is.
Well, and it's why in the winter, end of October, I automatically start to crave baths so much more. And I know
it's not every night. Every night.
The alone time is nice if you can get it, but it's not that. It's I'm just craving that extended earthing and grounding that I don't get in the same capacity outside.
Yeah. 1,000%. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. And there's so many different surfaces that you mentioned, just holding on to the pole when you're outdoors. And then I had somebody go on my YouTube channel and be like, that is the worst thing you can do if you're electrosensitive, is touch a pole. I'm like,
Well, if you're outside and the metal is literally anchored in the earth, and whether you're not touching the pole and you're in whatever electrical field or whatever they're talking about with the
Right.
Wi-Fi booster and stuff like that, versus being grounded while you're in the same exact fields, I would be
Right. It's
grounded
going
10
to
times
be
out of 10.
better for
Yeah.
you.
100%.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
get that a lot in terms of if I'm in a big city, you shouldn't be. I'm like, I say, in a big city, I would actually test to see if
More.
you're grounded. Number one, because is there, a subway system underneath you? Are you like, so test if you're pulling Earth's energies, that's great. Please test to make sure you are. But I would much rather be trying to mitigate some oxidative stress in that high non-native EMF environment. So
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The more that you can't control what your exposures are, like when you're traveling or whatever in the grocery store or whatever, the more that you actually do need that counterbalance. When you're home, you might be able to get by with just grounding for a couple minutes a day. If you've clear, if you have a nice, if you live on a farm, like you said, Sarah,
Right.
your best, customers or patients or whatever, like they do
Yep.
best because they have a really good
Yep.
lifestyle. But
Yep.
when you're in an urban setting, there's so much you cannot control. And so what I like to tell people is instead of stressing out about that, like they're trying to do on your social media and mine, is that's your dial tone then. That's where that's your dial tone. We cannot control necessarily 100% our dial tone. So accept that that's your dial tone, whether you're grounding or not, whether you're drinking water or not, whether you're sleeping well or not, whether you're washing your hands, it doesn't matter. That's your dial tone. So now with that dial tone, there's always something else we can do to improve our quality of life and our health.
Yeah.
No matter what your dial tone is. Literally, you can be in a prison system and you can go outside on the cement,
Yes.
and ground outside there too. Like even when you have no control over your environment, you can do something to make yourself feel even better instead of condemning the dial tone because you're right. Like, do you want me to magically fix that for you? Because I can't, but I can give you tools. I can give you tools to help.
Well, we say many times, we parrot this, that fear is the worst thing that you could do for your health, right? And so
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When I'm stressed out, my kids are like really driving me crazy and I just need a moment, I will come lay down on the basement floor because it's grounded. And I did that before I even had tested it to know it was grounded. I just was like, it's a dark, quiet space. I can't hear anybody and I'll just come sit on the floor. But now I'm like, oh, that's why I was so drawn to
that you tested
floor.
that. I love that you tested that because when you're on that floor, I don't care if you just count to 3, your muscle tension just went down for sure.
It's complete stress relief. And my office is down here in the basement. It's such a bummer. Like I want to rip the vinyl floor up.
And you can. Some people do that. They like take a little corner up. Yeah, you can.
I might, the more I work down here, because my travertine floor in the bathroom down here is grounded.
That's amazing.
But the vinyl cancels it. And then the other basement floor, which is bare, is all grounded down here. Cause it's, it's in Georgia. So it's a very hospitable environment most of the time, but it's been cold here lately. And I haven't wanted to sit outside on the ground with my breakfast, which is what I usually do. I'm just like,
same. I'm your neighbor. I'm in South Carolina and, my house is on a crawl space, but my garage is on a slab. So my garage I have set up. That's my basement basically that's why my hot tub out there is grounded. Then I got my slab and at least I could at least when it's cold, like you said, it has been cold lately, but I could be warm there. I even have a space heater going on in there, but I can put my feet on the garage and that's my equivalent of your basement.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's such an underrated tool for stress. And I feel like I get a lot of women in that perimenopausal age and menopause also, but the perimenopausal women, like this is when you really actually need to be more cognizant of your stress because stress, the cortisol does so much to these hormones that are shifting. It's like 100%. You want to completely destroy your body's ability to make progesterone, drive in the cortisol. And it's kind of like a cruel joke because we have, kids and then a lot of us have aging parents. And so it's like, what in the heck are you supposed to do in this time? Grounding. You need to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go lay on your basement floor, ladies.
There's your excuse.
I mean, I think it's almost too good to be true, but I talk about it through the lens of also nervous system regulation. It's part of the earthing and grounding is part of my nervous system regulation course because I love these other techniques, somatic experiencing, EMDR. There's some beautiful techniques, but how about we kind of give our body just like that automatic sense of what time of day it is, where we are in space, all that autonomic, that parasympathetic, sympathetic balance through which then we can do potentially these other exercises to bring our body naturally more into regulation. I mean, can you imagine? I tell people, if we're not Earth, it's harder for the body to know where it's located on the planet. It's harder for the body to know what time of day it is. I liken it to being thrown in a dark closet somewhere and like, yeah, guess what time of day it is, guess where you are. How can I regulate my nervous system when that is the foundation that I'm living in?
If you're not oriented, and that's part of dementia too, if you're not oriented to time and space, it's just so freaking stressful because you do feel like you don't have an anchor. And you're right, like even just a couple seconds of being part of that Earth's global electrical grid informs your brain like that. Just like you were talking about with your getting that idea and stuff. I love that because if people would really just try it, they would feel that. They would feel that.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think it's time for skin health. How about it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you have a little time, Laura, for skin health?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, we basically talked about it already because we could extrapolate that your skin health is going to be better because we do know that the blood flows to your skin instantaneously, like literally within seconds. There's better capillary flow, even if you're grounding through your foot all the way up in your face. So that's how important grounding is to your circulatory system. So that means not just your red blood cells are getting places or your platelets are getting places, but also they're less likely to clump because you had mentioned at the beginning of this that the potential, the zeta potential on each of your red blood cells makes them stay a little bit more separate, so they're more fluid through those capillaries, and that also means they're bringing oxygen and nutrients to your skin. So how can we then extrapolate that over time that would have like cosmetic benefits even? And we absolutely can, because then they've done grounding studies, and we kind of touched on this already, where they applied that DC energy to wounded skin. And because of the increase in circulation and the increase in oxygenation and nutrients, skin healed 3 times faster. A wound in skin healed 3 times faster when it was grounded. Wow. And then they took compromised skin, which is what I would say is the equivalent in this study of older skin, so someone who has diabetes or someone who has poor circulation because of cardiovascular disease, or just over time it's fibrotic scar tissue, there's just less robust circulation. That compromised skin then healed as well as healthy skin. Wow. So basically, if you have compromised skin, grounding it made it healthy skin. If you have healthy skin with a wound, grounding then made it work 3 times better. So if you then say, so that's just a skin study, but it's great. It's fabulous. So, but it's just in skin. But if you then say, well, that same blood flow is going to my kidneys, so now my kidney filtration rate over you know what I mean? Like, we now need to extrapolate, what does that mean for every single freaking organ system? Because does every organ system work 3 times faster? Do some organ systems work 50% better? Do some work 10,000% better? We need to know that. But by just impacting circulation and showing that has a real life effect on how my skin heals. Now I want to look at every other organ system and tissue too.
I would love it. I want someone to study the lymphatic system. It's this idea that the lymphatic system doesn't have a pump, right? But I know the muscles, but what about how the charged entities and the charged lining of the lymphatic vessels themselves can promote flow, like Dr. Pollack 100%. Shows in his, easy water circulation research studies. I'm just thinking that has to be at play when it comes to being benefited by grounding.
Yes, all healing has some kind of I forget what the word is, electrotaxis, which is an electrical gradient causing healing to happen. So even skin, if you had a little cut and they measured the electric potential, there's electrotaxis, meaning one side is drawing healing to this side. It's just an electrically stimulated event, basically. And most people don't know that, but I'm sure the lymphatic system is the same. They've shown, and this isn't quite the lymphatic system, but it's kind of similar. There's no heartbeat in your brain making your your cerebrospinal fluid move through and kind of cleanse your brain and bring oxygen and nutrients to your brain. But the earth is actually related to breathing deep actually moves that. And also when you sleep, they've shown that there's more extensive cerebrospinal fluid able to go into the brain more when you're asleep, something about the ventricles opening up. And there is an electrical part of that which we're just starting to understand. And they have now, obviously I'm not like a neuroscientist, so this is a little bit beyond me, but they have now shown that the movement of the cerebrospinal fluid is enough to battery power implants in the brain. So so this is new research, but they're now using the movement of that fluid to then power, so it doesn't have to be externally powered, different brain implants like stimulants. That's when people need those. So I do think there's got to be an equivalent in the lymphatic system, to your point. it just, if the flow of fluid is electrotaxic, then there's no way that is not in play in the lymphatic system, but we just don't have the actual research on that yet.
No,
That's fabulous.
Know. We gotta raise a ton of money, people. Anyone who wants to donate money, we gotta raise a ton of money so we can get these studies done. Because I want this research done. It'd be so cool to see.
But how cool that from your education, your experience, and your knowledge, plus common sense that we know. I mean, we already know, but we do need the studies.
This, just the world that we live in these days, people really like to see things validated with research. Yeah. So, which I think is totally fine. As long as the research is well done
Exactly.
and not biased and not, there's a whole issue with that, but that's not for this. That's for sure. I think the research that you've come up with here and just compiled in this, short, but like really comprehensive discussion has been phenomenal.
Well, thank you. I feel like I could sum it up by saying, because I don't feel like I've just made one sentence on grounding and aging. And aging is a balance between how much inflammation is accruing and wear and tear in the body, which you can just say inflammation as one basket, and how much regeneration our body is capable of, namely stem cells, but other forms of regeneration. So how much wear and tear versus how much can I repair it, basically. And grounding decreases that inflammation and protects and boosts those stem cells. So it's literally both. And so that's why I feel like the potential, we're just scratching the surface. Mm-hmm. And I will give you guys the link if your listeners want to read any of these studies for themselves for that comprehensive review I did.
I just pulled it up too. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, did you?
Okay. Yeah, I love it. Please, let's link it. I'd love it. All this good stuff. There's you and I.
Does that have the weight loss one in there? Because I got to find that one.
I don't think I mentioned that in there, but I'll send you a link to that too.
Okay, good. I need that one for my weight loss group for next year.
For anyone who's interested, I want to direct people to your website because there's a whole tab underneath your website where you list these medical studies. And so it's really a great resource for people who are like, wait a second, I want to dive deeper. And so it's a phenomenal resource.
That's right, because you're welcome. And I appreciate you pointing that out because I would say that I am the one who gets most of the skeptics. You are probably getting a lot of people who are already open holistically, which is awesome because you can probably go a lot further with them than I do with my patients and readers because the people that go to my website, they feel safer because I have an MD, so I'm more conventionally trained. But that means that they're also so skeptical. They want proof. Well, I'm sorry, that study hasn't been done yet, but I'm telling you, I've worked with grounding for 20 years and I've seen da-da-da. But they're so mean and so skeptical. So yes, that's why I had to make a whole tab, grounding medical studies. Read this then, and then come back to me. Read this and then come back to me. But that's why I think I'm a good bridge to then get people to your resources because you will be able to go so much further and looking deeper into when someone is already open-minded enough to then work with you guys. So I think it's great. But I have I have to have that grounding medical studies page or else I'm just like reamed out every day, basically.
Oh, it's so hard.
Yeah, I know, it's tough.
Social media, why?
Like when did we, I know we've talked about this on other podcasts, but when did we become so skeptical of the way that we lived for
and
God
mean
knows how long?
And mean.
And mean about it too. It's
mean.
Like, wait, what?
Like, I'm so sorry, but something about social media, it's just a mind fuck, if I'm allowed to say that. I don't know if I can say that on your thing, but I don't know about you guys. You guys are both gorgeous, stunning women. And most of the comments I get are just mean and about my appearance. Most of them.
So
I'm like,
bizarre.
I'm trying to fix your health. And they're like, you have a tattoo or,
oh my gosh.
You think
you're on TikTok though. I don't do TikTok.
Oh my God. People are so mean.
And I never read YouTube comments. Sorry.
Like
YouTube comments.
For talking about anti-aging benefits. And you can imagine that, it's been life-changing for so many people to get that information. And I'm trying to approach it from a health point of view. 99% of the comments are, you think you look good for your age?
Oh
just another old
You do look good for your No, you look great for your age.
But it doesn't matter.
A news flash for anybody making those comments. You are going to age. You're going to get older. Do you think you're going to be 22 forever? Like,
right. And I don't
know.
When did I ever say anything about what I look like? And like also every other
by the way, gorgeous. And anyone just on audio only.
But I can talk about like your cardiovascular disease. And then I'm just
well, that's
it's just all about your parents. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You can never
get it right. You can never get it right on social media. Like, oh, you're not a doctor? You can't talk about this.
No, never.
Oh, I don't trust doctors. Doctors are all liars.
You can't win. Right.
Not a study for that? Oh, I don't trust studies. Like, it's just, you can't, there's no winning. There's
no win.
So
You'll
you
have
just
to
have
join
to-
our weekly behind the scenes chat that Sarah and I are just like, I can't believe I had this comment on social media. Like, it's
Yes.
kind of a bitch fest of just like,
vent every week
we
before
try,
we record.
to
Like,
provide
People are
good
just
quality.
mean, but yes, that's kind of
Yeah.
funny. I need to start that. I need to do a behind the scenes. Can you believe this comment? That's awesome. I love that.
We'll
Yeah.
add you to our WhatsApp thread.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I have a WhatsApp thread with
That's
Dr.
amazing.
You got to befriend Dr. Sarah Pugh because she'll go after people on YouTube. Like I'll send her screenshots and she's like, "Oh no, absolutely not!" And like she'll be like,
That's awesome.
"You little twat! Why don't you
Yes.
start your own YouTube channel?"
Yes.
And like just like go off on people. I'm like,
Yes.
I'm telling Dr. Pugh on you. Like,
That's awesome. I need a friend like that. Yes, absolutely.
it's amazing. Yeah.
But no, for real, honestly, you are a wealth of knowledge. This has been
Yes.
so phenomenal to hear.
Yes.
I'm just so grateful for you and for the fact that you're getting this information, you're putting the research out, you're doing your own. I mean, you're like a Wonder Woman when it comes to this. So I'm just so grateful for you. Thank you for being on.
Yeah.
Anything else,
Appreciate it.
Sarah, that we wanna touch on?
I mean, obviously go to her website, and a big question that I get that I'm constantly answering over and over again is this grounded? Is this grounded? Does this work for ground? I'm like, buy the meter from Dr.
Yes.
Koniver's website from Intuition Position. We'll put a link in the show notes, but I think that's the most
Mhm.
helpful tool.
But you would be so shocked. I mean, something that you just like at a bus stop or whatever, you
Yeah.
pass by every day. If you just touched it, that would
Yeah.
have been your grounding. And you just,
Yeah.
but if you don't know, you don't know. So you're
I don't
exactly
know.
right.
And then shoes, are these shoes
Yeah.
good? Are those shoes? I don't
Mhm.
know.
Test
Because
them.
I had some shoes that I paid $200 for, come to find out, weren't grounded. You know, you just don't know until you just test it out. So
Yeah.
it's
Well, it depends what surface, right? Wet dew
Right.
might be more so than if you're
Right.
on dry wood. I mean,
and
like
then a person to
leaves.
person, like, are you dehydrated? Like you know,
I've totally seen that too.
yeah,
Totally seen
yeah.
that too.
So I always say, if you're wondering if you're grounded, then test it. Like if your boyfriend, the plumber boyfriend, buy your electrician plumber boyfriend the meter and have them go and wash the dishes and test if they're
Perfect.
grounded.
Exactly. Thank you. Amen.
Take a shower. Go take a bath. Maybe you'll feel better and not need to troll everyone on social
Right.
media and invalidate all of their work.
You'll get that
natural
sync up.
dopamine.
Yeah.
Natural dopamine.
You'll just get that
This is
hit
all
of like
levels
what's
down.
really important in life and what's not.
I love it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Dr. Koniver. Just appreciate you
Awesome.
being here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, girls. I appreciate it so much.